My name is Ellis, and I was mayor in 2002 to 2010. And I started on the council in 1986, and it was a vacancy. And I had done a few things in town in terms of organizations. I had been president of the Optimist Club. I had been president of our church board, Wilson Memorial Church. And so came to me and said, we have an opening on the council, would you like to try and take a shot at it? Of course, I said, yeah, I'm more interested in politics and what's going on, and that's a great town. I'd like to see what I could do to bring to the table. So that's when I started, and it was filled an unexpired term. So I was obviously elected, and I had to run the next year for a 3-year term, which I did, and it just kept going on there. And at that point, Ken Schmidt was mayor, and he could be a little gruff at times. It was fun. And of course, I was the rookie, so I got the wonderful job of being assigned to the engineering department. And he said to me, he said, "Ellis, I want you to take a look at these fences around swimming pools." Well, I didn't know it, but 2 council members at that particular time had swimming pools and didn't have any fences on them. So I started with the engineer. We started trying to create an ordinance that you'd have to have a fence around a new pool, and it had to be so high and so many openings. And of course, there were all these ordinances that had already been done. We weren't reinventing the wheel, but just that we were bringing this new wheel to the borough of Watchung. Well, I got a lot of attention, and we finally passed an ordinance about it. But lo and behold, we grandfathered a few places that already have pools without fences. So that was my real introduction to how politics was really going to work. Fran, my wife, and I had graduated from North Plainfield High School, and we had a lot of friends because Watchung was a sending district to North Plainfield High School. So we knew Fred Best, we knew the Kimes, we knew the Beckwiths, and many other kids. Earl Acker. I mean, we knew a lot of people in town, and we loved Watchung, and it was a place to go. So we started out in a little apartment on the 3rd floor in 7th Street in Plainfield, and this house became available. And we knew Mr. Beckwith, obviously, and so I went through the whole business about getting a mortgage and trying to put things together. And my uncle was in the real estate business in Plainfield, and he said, "You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this." But I said, "No, Uncle Harry, I think I'm going to try and make this happen anyway and see where it goes." So I finally got the mortgage approved. I got everything all done. I called up Mr. Beckwith, excited, told him that the contract, we got it all, the approval and the motion, the price and the mortgage and everything else. And he said, "That's great, Alex. I'm glad to do that." He says, "But I have another offer." And so, crushed, I said, "Well, I hope we can still be a player." And I hung up the phone, and I was crushed because I felt that, well, this was not going to happen. Well, it turns out that the other fellow wanted to buy the house, but he wanted to rent it for 2 or 3 years and have the rent applied to the ultimate mortgage. Mr. Beckwith didn't like that idea, so he took us. And so we moved into 701 Valley Road. It was great. Loved it ever since. Now we moved again. We moved into an older house. Actually, it's probably about 100 years old. The Oswald property, the Oswald house. So that's how we got here into the borough in Watchung. It was different because it was a town that had a lot of people volunteering. You had a volunteer rescue squad. You had a volunteer fire department. We have the same today, but most of the people, or I would say majority of the people, were from the town. And so today, we're fortunate enough to still have those organizations, but they're populated by many people and young people who are out of town. And but they're still existing. They still do a marvelous job. The Council on Affordable Housing, COAH, became a very important process on how we were going to handle that. The legislature and the courts kept making mandates, and we had to assume how those mandates were going to go, and we would try to react to those particular situations. And the one way you could do that was to have different areas that you were going to assign for future building of low affordable housing. And the biggest piece that we had originally, excuse me, was the Ness property. The Ness property, and so I became involved with Mr. Ness. He was a grand old guy. He was unbelievable. I think he probably had the first nickel or dime he ever made. He was a very wealthy man, but he didn't live like a wealthy man, and because he still farmed, and he did all the things that were necessary to have a farm. So we negotiated. I tried to negotiate, and he was amicable. We talked and back and forth, and tried to offer him certain kind of situations that would be an advantage to him tax-wise and everything else. But unfortunately, he passed away before I would complete negotiations. But I kept negotiations going because he left it to the Central Jersey Jewish organization, and so we negotiated with him, and come to know that their attorney was Jerry Flansbaum, who I had known was a North Plainfield graduate too. So we kept the negotiations going, and we finally were successful in negotiating 22 acres that were going to be left as recreation areas. Conversely, if that had been built, there would have been 320 units built in our town, and obviously the impact of that is in the school system and how that would have impacted us. So I really think I'm very proud that we were able to continue to do that. And I just found out part of the deal was I had to go to the county. I wanted to get county because surrounding areas, Warren Township and other places, had gotten quite a bit of county money in terms of parks and recreation stuff. We hadn't really gotten anything. So I was able to negotiate $1 million from the county, which has recently been paid, I think, in the last year. So, and it reduced the cost that we paid for the property. So very proud of that. Very proud of that deed. Every time you have a particular piece of open space, you have to pass an ordinance that's going to either affect the one thing or try and affect everything. And you always have these flag lot situations. And the flag lot situations can really be a problem because you're really kind of deciding it on a one issue basis. And once you do that, then you made an established piece of legislation or law or rule or regulation that the next person that comes along and says, well, you did this with A, and this is just the same thing, only it's B. And so you have to really kind of hassle it out and make sure you do that. We've had some great attorneys on those boards, and we've had some great engineers on those boards that have guided us through it. There's been stumbling blocks along the way, there always will be, but I think we've done a very good job with our open space and managed it very well. We purchased other things. We've got the property behind it, Phillips Field, and that was a very big project. And one of the things that made it all happen was that the Optimist Club in town decided that that would be a great spot for a project and to make ball fields. So they designed 3 ball fields for that particular area up there. And that obviously has led to what it is today, and where the Little League baseball and things have built a shack, and it's really it's a major spot for recreation for the kids in their little leagues. The one thing about it, it became so successful that there was a wave of interest to put lights on it. And then we started to get some interesting people talking about, well, light's going to mean a microphone. It's going to be 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night. We're going to be able to hear this microphone announcing the ball players, blah, blah, blah. So ultimately the council said no lights. That all started back in the flood of 1973, and we lost. There was, I believe, at least 1 or 2 people were killed in that particular thing, and cars were floating down Somerset Street. And so a group of people were formed. Noble, Vern Noble, became the chair of it. I don't know if he was the head of it or not. Started to form this organization called the Greenbrook Flood Control. And it was a magnificent idea to get the towns together to try and control some of the flooding. But the whole key was to get Congress to appropriate money to do these projects, along with the state of New Jersey. And it took a long time, but we had some great congressmen in town, congressmen that listened to us, understood the cause, made the presentations in Congress, passed bills that ultimately started to fund the money, and we started building the flood control. And basically it's almost complete, I believe, in the Bound Brook area and in a sense downstream. And it got to a point, again, politics, Tony mentioned it earlier, about the upper basin and the lower basin. The lower basin, we're referred to as Bound Brook, is basically completed. And the upper basin still has to be, quote, designed. And so some of the ideas were to make a basin out of Weldon Quarry and have to keep the water flowing up in there. And then other was using some of the reservation off of Glenside to do that particular thing. They haven't been funded, they haven't been going on there, but now the thrust is starting to move in that direction, so perhaps the upper basin will come to fruition in what I hope is an agreement between the people in Berkeley Heights and New Providence and that part of Union County, where we'll be successful and we'll kind of work together.